Hey everybody, Steve Gamache here with another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review. And the knife we're looking at this time is the Yoshimitsu Aogami Super, or AS Gyuto 210mm knife. So the construction on this is 3 layers, and in the harder, or I should say the center, you've got the harder cutting core steel, which is called Aogami, or what's known as Blue Paper Super. It is reactive, high carbon steel. Heat treats about 62, 63 Rockwell approximately, so they treat it to a fairly high hardness. The construction, as I mentioned, 3 layers, so on either side of that hard reactive core steel, you also have a soft iron reactive cladding, and that has also a Kudauchi or KU, or kind of a blacksmith protective finish. So the entire knife is reactive. You'll see I've been playing with it a little bit, so it's got a patina that's starting on the edge and as well on the cladding. It is pretty frequent that the iron cladding on these is actually more reactive than the core steel, which you can kind of see in this case. This is from onions and such. So different types of food produce different types of patinas. Onions tend to be a little bit more on the brownish side, and poultry and meats can tend to be a little bit more on the blue or purple side sometimes. It kind of depends on the knife a little bit, but you can influence that typically with the kinds of foods that you cut initially with the knife. So anyway, the weight and dimensions on these will vary a little bit because of the way they're made. So this particular one is 136 grams or 4.8 ounces. The edge length is right about 210mm on the money, which is about 8¼ inches. And the overall length is about 350mm or 13.8 inches. The spine thickness, again, will vary a little bit, but this particular one's about 3.5mm wide coming out of the handle. And then I measured it about halfway down the blade, and it's about 2¼ and pretty much holds that until you get to the grind. So there's not a ton of distal taper. There's a little bit of taper there. And you'll see the tip's fairly thin. It actually performs quite well, but it's not whisper thin. And where that comes in is with the grind. You can easily see where the grind is from the hammered flats or sides of the blade, and then it's ground down towards the edge. So I guess let's get our beauty shot at this point. There we go. The blade height is 51¼ millimeters at the back, and again that will vary from knife to knife a little bit. Handles are nothing fancy, octagonal walnut with what's known as a black pack of wood or stabilized wood ferrule. Pretty decent fit and finish on it. Just a small little bump there where the ferrule meets the walnut, but nothing objectionable at all. The handle install on these is kind of a quick install, and they've got a drill mark in there, so you'll probably want to fill that gap in with something, wax or sealer of some kind, so you don't get moisture in there. Circumference on the handle is about 76mm or 3 inches where the ferrule meets the walnut. It's a pretty standard size. Balance point on this knife, again, it'll depend on the handle, but with this particular handle, your balance point is about right there. So for me, that's just about on my pinch grip, maybe just a touch forward of that. So it gives you, it's a light knife, it's under 5 ounces, but it gives you just a little bit of that weight forward balance bias. Let's see. In terms of ergonomics, you'll see their particular style of handle install. You've got a longer neck in here and a curve from the choil, the back of the blade, into the tang of the knife. The neck here, but so you could, if you did a custom handle on this, and the knife's pretty doggone not good, so if you ever did a custom handle, you could back that off a little bit, make the handle light so you don't mess up the balance too much, and then you got a nice spot for your finger. As it is, you can't really stick your finger right in there, but it works pretty well. So lots of blade height for clearance, you can see that no problem. The out of the box edge, I'd say maybe 5, 6 out of 10. It was a pretty good, pretty sharp out of the box edge. They did put a pretty steep edge bevel on it. They got pretty aggressive. Let's see if we can pick that up. They got pretty aggressive with the edge bevel. You can see it's fairly wide. So with Aogami Super, you can get fairly steep on your edge bevels, and they weren't bashful about that. So you can see a fairly wide bevel, which means steep angles. Let's see here. The performance, I said, is pretty nice. It's thin at the edge. It's reasonably thin at the tip, and I really like the 240 version of this. I reviewed last time. We did the quick look video. And this is basically a very similar knife. It's actually might be a little thinner at the edge. It's just a little smaller. These have very good bones. They have a little bit of rough around the edges feel, but they're fairly refined. Probably the biggest thing I've seen on both of them is they'll tend to maybe have bumps in the profile. This one's got a little bump in this area here. We'll see that. But that could be cleaned up pretty easily. But they've finished off the spine just enough to make it comfortable, as well as the choil. There's nothing objectionable there. The blade's nice and straight. Grinds look pretty good. You've got embossed kanji on one side, and then some embossed pressed in kanji on the other side. This is the left-sided blade as you'd be holding it. You can see some of that patina on the edge and on the soft iron cladding. The sides are fairly smooth. You've got just enough kind of rustic character to it to feel some of the hammer marks and that kind of stuff. It does show the exposed layers of the construction on the spine. I don't know if we can see that. So the iron does not wrap over the top, but you can see that 3-layer construction there peeking out a little bit. Let's see. Let's put it on the cutting board. So this is a knife that you could probably clean up just a little bit, maybe on the profile if you wanted, maybe tweak it a little to your liking. And then I think it's good enough knife. Nice, it's really nice coarse steel, where you could put a custom handle on this, or a different handle if you wanted to knock it back a little bit, give yourself some more room for a pinch grip, or upgrade it a little bit. This knife has good structure. So you'll see this knife does have a bit of a high spot right there. So the profile is a little hard to show you a true profile. That would be easy to work down. High spots are easier than low spots. So that would be pretty easy to work down. Pretty small job, and then resharpen the knife. And you could clean up that back area and make it a little flatter. So it's got a lot of potential here. And every knife's going to be a little bit different. But it's got a lot of potential here for a little flatter back section. You can see the front doesn't rise too much, so I don't get super high, but I can get up there. It's actually pretty good on the clearance portion of it. So this would rock nicely. If you tweak the profile a little, you get a little more flat area in the back for chopping. Should be great with push-pull cuts. So pretty versatile profile overall. So good knife that has some great characteristics to it that you can tweak a little, maybe add a nice handle to it, nicer handle if you wanted to do that. So this is the Yoshimitsu Aogami Super Gyuto 210mm knife.